welcome to Math Talk. I'm your host, Brian Heisler. And today we're going to look at part 2 of my series on some popular GED math questions. And in this video, we're going to take a look at how to write expressions. If you haven't checked out video 1, go ahead and check it out so you can look at some examples of non-calculator questions. If you have, let's get started. So we have a question that says, Mike, John, and Kathleen took their GED math test last week. Ask you to write an expression that represents the average of their scores. So obviously knowing how to find the average is going to be key here. And how to find the average is you take your set of numbers, you add them up, and then you divide by however many numbers there are. So in this case, there are no actual numbers, and so we're going to write an expression to represent how we would find the average. And so we're going to add up the numbers, which in this case are represented by Mike, John, and Kathy. And so we're going to call it M, J, and K, and then we just divide by however many there are, in this case 3. So there's your expression. M plus J plus K over 3 is going to get you the average of their scores if you knew the numbers. All right, perfect. Let's look at a follow-up question to this. We have a student, Bobby, who scored 162 on his GED test, which brought the average score for all 4 students to 153. What is the average score, or what was the average score for Mike, John, and Kathy? Okay, so there's a lot of things we need to kind of figure out with this. Bobby becomes this 4th person, and he scores a 162, which means the average score for all 4 of them is now 153. And we want to take that information and find just the average of the original 3. So what we want to think about is what would we do to figure out the average of the 4 of them? Well, we would add up all 4 scores and then divide by 4. And so if we were to add up all the 4 scores, it should really equal a total of 153 times 4, because on average, each of the 4 of them are scoring 153. So there's basically 4 different 153s, okay? And so if I do that, what it looks like is I have Mike and John and Kathy plus Bobby's score of 162 is going to get me 4 times that 153 average. What I'm going to do is I'm going to simplify this down. It's going to become M plus J plus K plus that 162 is 612. Now I can subtract off that 162 from both sides, and when I do that, I get M plus J plus K is 450. So how do I find the average for that? Well, right above I have an expression that represents the average. I take my total and I divide it by the 3 different people. So 450 divided by 3 is 150, which means the average for Mike, John, and Kathy is 150. All right, perfect. Let's look at another example of how to write expressions. Write an expression that is equivalent to each of the phrases below. So we have 2 different examples. One of them says the product of the quantity 3 more than a number and the quantity 2 less than the same number. So in any kind of word problem or written phrase, you want to break apart your pieces of it. And so this has kind of a couple of different main pieces. One of them says we have a quantity of 3 more than a number and a quantity 2 less than the same number. So to represent that, the quantity is usually represented by parentheses. We're going to call x our number. 3 more than that means I'm adding 3. And then the quantity 2 less than the same number, so our number x, 2 less than that is minus 2. All right? Now I want to take those 2 quantities and I want to find the product of the 2. And product means multiply, so I'm going to put a multiplication symbol in the middle, and that is our expression. All right, great. Let's look at the next one. 4 times the quantity 3 less than x divided by the product of 7 and x. All right. So again, we want to find the different pieces of this phrasing. In that case, we have 4 times the quantity 3 less than x, and we have a product of 7 and x. So in that first part, 4 times a quantity. Again, quantities are represented with parentheses. 4 times the quantity 3 less than x, which is x minus 3. And then we have a product of 7 and x, which is a 7 times x. And so I'm going to rewrite it as just 7x because typically that's how you're going to see it. You don't need a multiplication symbol in between the 2. All right. And then the other piece of this phrase is divided by. And so obviously that means we need a division sign in the middle of these two. And so we have our expression. Now, typically when you have any kind of expression where you're dividing different quantities, you're going to see it written as a fraction. So most likely you're going to see this final answer written like this, where the first quantity is on top, 4 times the quantity x minus 3, and then divided by, which is the fraction bar, and then a product of 7 and x. So I hope this helps as you get the questions that ask you to write out expressions using variables and numbers. Be on the lookout for the next video when I take a look at how to find the surface area of different figures. And as always, thanks for watching.